Thank you for joining me for Proud Mode's final update. This is the first and only mod I've made, and I honestly didn't expect this to get more than 5 downloads. To say I've been shocked by the amount of people who have played this is an understatement. Thank you, and let's get started. I'll be talking about Proud Mode and Hard Mode in this video. Timestamps are available for you to skip to the section you're most interested in. Let's start with Proud Mode. The purpose of Proud Mode is to increase the difficulty of the game in a meaningful way. There are 4 main ways this is done: better AI, increased enemy stats, increased enemy move pool, and tougher leveling. Let's start with the first one. In the original game, enemies tend to attack for a short amount of time and then stop and watch you. This breaks immersion and makes it difficult to feel like you're being challenged. In Proud Mode, this has been rectified by increasing all enemy to random high level values. All enemies, even early level ones and weak ones, will now press the attack rather than waiting around. At the request of the community, I've also increased the AI of a few story mode allies and all allies in parallel quests. Note that by allies in parallel quests, I mean the ones who are part of the parallel quest by default, not the ones you bring into battle from the character select screen. Next up are the stat changes. I've modified the level, health, ki, stamina, percent damage dealt, percent damage taken, and for some enemies, movement speed. Enemies with canonical regeneration such as Cell, Boo, and Zamasu will now regenerate health at all times. The third change is to movesets. In the vanilla game, enemies either don't have a full roster of skills or have weak, generic skills. Characters now have a full set of skills that are either related to them, related to someone important to them, or fit their attack style. I also added transformations where it made sense. The fourth major change is player leveling. It starts out 3 times as difficult, but falls in line with the vanilla game by level 21. The number of attribute points per level has been evened out for a more consistent, steady level of growth. Note that the final number of attribute points is the same. Before we dive into specific sections of the game, let's wrap up the general changes. Proud Mode has been applied to Legends Patrol, most DLC missions, and the base game. Fade to white commands are now fade to black, and some characters have changes to their stats to be more in line with their story. For instance, Hercule is always at level 0, Birder has 4 times increased movement speed, Super 17 takes no damage from key-based attacks, and Beerus and Whis are at the max level and take only a fraction of the normal damage. As stated before, enemies with canonical regeneration have also been given health regeneration. If you're using the optional music mod, I tried to match characters with their themes in the anime. Now let's look at story mode changes. I've changed a few flags in story mode. Too many times I was wailing on enemies while waiting for the dialogue to finish. There were also times where I completely won the battle or knocked out an enemy only for the cutscene to show the enemy at perfect health and my character beat up. It was irritating, so I made some changes. Dialogue and cutscenes now play at different times in an attempt to prevent players from having to wait for dialogue to finish. Additionally, missions with extremely tough enemies will be cleared so long as you survive for a certain amount of time, or if you get them down to a certain amount of health. Story mode also has its own unique system. Previously this was the do or die system, but the community requested that I change it. Instead, I've added the all-in system. If a non-Majin drops below 25% health, they get specific bonuses based on their race. However, they'll take an additional 25% damage for the remainder of the mission. Majins who reach 50% health will immediately be dropped to 35% max health, but will only take 75% damage for the remainder of the mission. Previously, I made it so that you couldn't use items during this time in an attempt to increase difficulty and pressure, but the community requested that I remove this, so it's no longer present. This has been made optional. Check out the installation section of this video for more information. Now let's talk about parallel quests. Nearly all time limits have been maxed out. Parallel quest ultimate finishes that used to rely on completing them in a certain amount of time will now trigger so long as the player remains above 10% health for the entire mission. Also, in the vanilla game, for whatever reason, ultimate finishes were set to randomly trigger so long as you meet the requirements. I went ahead and changed that. So long as you meet the requirements or special conditions for the ultimate finish, it will always trigger. I figured this just made more sense. The learn rate of evasives, skills, and ultimates, as well as the drop rates of items, has been increased to 100%. This is because it takes much longer to complete parallel quests than it did before. And also, a 28% drop rate on certain skills and ultimates was really annoying. Time rifts now have enemies at much higher levels, so you might need to wait a little bit longer before attempting them. Training with Vegeta gives twice the normal amount of experience and Zenny by default. This will change to triple the normal amount if you stay above 25% health throughout the entire mission. Guru's house missions now give double the experience if you defeat all the enemies before collecting the Dragon Balls. This is meant to incentivize you to actually defeat the enemies. The final big change is the optional music mod. It uses music from Dragon Ball Kai, Dragon Ball Super Broly, Dragon Ball FighterZ, and a few pieces of other Dragon Ball media. I've also added remixes from Android Orchestra, Stizmask, and Pokemixer 92. Let's move on to hard mode. Hard mode is a minimalistic approach to Proud Mode that was requested by the community. Enemies have increased AI and have more movesets. That's it. That's the entire mod. There are no changes to stats, scripts, or leveling. There are no changes to item or skill drop rates. Enemies are not given health regeneration, and no other changes have been made to the script. There is no optional music mod version. The only changes to the game are an increase to enemy AI and more moves. You can see all the changes I made through the Google Docs link in the description. It's also found on the mod download page. I don't expect anyone to read all of it, or really even a page of it, but if you have questions about what changes were made in a specific mission, or if you want to know what music was used in a certain quest, you can check here. Let's discuss some important bugs. You may have noticed that Proud Mode is the only mod that affects the vanilla story, parallel quest, and other missions, and there's a good reason for that. The game really doesn't like when you edit these files, and there are a host of bugs that occur whenever you change them. In fact, every time the game is updated, new bugs occur. Here's what you can do to minimize or fix some of the bugs. Proud Mode must be installed after your other mods. If you notice a bug where you have infinite loading when you enter the time nest, go to this folder and delete this file. Installing the mod makes it so that all parallel quests are unlocked by default, except for the ones that are required by talking to people throughout Kanton City. Unfortunately, there doesn't appear to be a solution to this issue. Another major issue occurs when fighting Majin Buu in Story Mission 24. Trunks doesn't appear in the time nest like he should. You can fix this by using a save editor to set Story Mission 25 to be locked. To install Proud Mode or Hard Mode, go to your Steam library and right-click on Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. Click on Properties, and in the Local Files tab you can click Browse to access your game directory. Make a copy of your data folder if it's present, and keep it somewhere. Now, extract the data folder in the Proud Mode zip and place it in this location. To uninstall, restore the data folder you copied earlier. If you no longer have this, you can enter the data folder and delete the quest and system folders. If you installed the optional music mod, you must also delete the sound folder. Note that any mod that uses these folders will also be affected. Finally, if you want to install Proud Mode or Hard Mode for only certain parts of the game, you can go into your quest folder and affect these files here. Deleting specific folders will remove the mod from those affected areas. That's all. There will be no further updates or changes to Proud Mode. It's been a long 3 years, but I thank you for your continued support. Enjoy the mod.